Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome to what I guess is a snapshot video covering Snapshot 21w15a. But more importantly, before we start taking a look at this week's snapshot, which is relatively slim and kind of different from the ones that we've been seeing recently, we also have to cover something else, and that is an announcement which I'm sure many of you have seen. Other YouTubers will have covered it, or you'll have gone to the blog post and seen it for yourself, but in case you are not up to speed about this, Mojang has announced that the Minecraft Caves and Cliffs update, what we've been referring to as Minecraft 1.17, is going to be split into two separate updates. And this is for a couple of different reasons, which are all explained in the blog post and the accompanying video with Lady Agnes and Henrik, which is actually really worth watching. I highly recommend that even if you don't read the entire blog post, go there and watch that video, because it provides a little bit more detail. It allows the developers to talk about the kind of challenges of developing this update in their own words, and basically, to summarize, the Caves and Cliffs update is being split into two just because of the sheer size of the update and the ambition of the development team in making this the update that the community wants, basically. The amount of work that's going into redesigning the caves and changing world height. In terms of the technical aspect, this is something that's never really been done to Minecraft before, and so the team is really having to pull out all the stops to make sure it is executed well. The second part of that is the quality. Obviously, they want this update to have the same quality control or better than other updates have had in the past, and so it's incredibly important to make sure that the update is tested and that all of the bugs are worked out before release, and so on and so forth. The most important aspect of this, though, is that the team's health is being looked after, and that's not just in terms of it being a pandemic out there, although that's still a factor because the team is still working separately from home and that's affecting their workflow. It's more about crunch, and crunch is a term that's been thrown around a lot in recent media coverage of video games development studios, and what it comes down to is teams often being asked to work longer hours just so an update for a game or a full release of a game can come out on time, and that leads to people working absurdly long hours and in difficult conditions, just coping with all of that stress in order to get an update done for a game or to ship a game on time. And realistically, that doesn't amount to a sustainable thing that people can do. They get burnt out, and it's important that the developers of Minecraft don't do that, because realistically they have to continue working on this game for potentially decades to come. They've talked about Minecraft not really having an end and being constantly updated into the future, and if the development team just gets burnt out and doesn't want to look at the project, then future updates are going to suffer as a result. We can presume that they're already looking at potentially what's going to be coming in the update after Caves and Cliffs, and so to have the additional stress of working on this update and thinking about ideas for that update and so forth, it just seems like an awful amount to put onto this development team, and so they've decided to take the development process a little steadier and release the Caves and Cliffs update in two separate parts. Agnes and Henrik go over a little bit more about what each of these updates is going to contain in the video itself, but to summarize once again, the first update we're getting is still going to arrive in summer, around the time they expected the Caves and Cliffs update to be released in the first place. And that's going to contain a lot of the changes we've been seeing in snapshots already. The changes to ore block textures and raw ores, the axolotls, glow squids, and goats are going to be added. A lot of the blocks like dripstone and tuff and deep slate are still going to be available in the worlds, but we're not going to be seeing the changes to world generation, the enhanced caves, the additional world height and depth. We're not going to be seeing caves below Y0 or mountains reaching beyond Y256 in the summer update of Caves and Cliffs. That is all being packaged up and saved for a winter update, so the team can continue to work on that and refine it and cope with the challenges of implementing stuff like dripstone caves, lush caves, and the deep dark, which presumably means that we won't be seeing the Warden until that winter update either. Amethyst, geodes, and copper are going to be added in the summer update, so you're going to be able to open your existing worlds in this update without any changes to world height, and you'll still find copper and amethyst generating in parts of the world you haven't explored. And they are planning on eventually having the older worlds transition into new cave generation and stuff in a way that doesn't leave giant chunk borders everywhere and leave the whole thing feeling like a mess, allowing older players to keep those persistent worlds that they've had for potentially up to 10 years or more and bring them forward into newer world generation. Technically, that's a massive challenge, which is why that's being saved until winter. Another thing they pointed out in this video is that one feature has been taken off the slate for the Caves and Cliffs update, which is Archaeology. Archaeology was one of the features that was discussed at the last Minecraft Live, and apparently the scope of that feature has just been too big for it to be put in this update with the quality that they want to bring to it. They think Archaeology could be an idea all of its own that could demand a little bit more attention and be worth expanding into something bigger in a future update. Or even if it stays the same as it was before, it's at least a large enough feature that developing it in tandem with all of the other changes to Caves and Cliffs didn't feel like the right time and was just an additional stress on the team. So that's being saved for a future update, and potentially we might see Archaeology in the update beyond Caves and Cliffs. And I'm sure some of you are now wondering what my opinion of all of this is and what that means for my future plans, because of course I've been talking for a while about how I'm going to end the Survival Guide Season 1 when the Caves and Cliffs update comes out, begin a Season 2, and start my tutorial series from scratch, exploring the new caves and every new element that's been added to the game in this update. And naturally, that means that my plans have kind of changed a little bit with the update being split in two. As for how I feel about the whole thing, I'm honestly just happy that the development team is conscious of the stress on them and they want to make sure they get the update right whilst also taking care of themselves. I think if anything, from the last year, I've learned that the humans behind all of the stuff that we enjoy really need to be treated better, and so I think it's a really great thing that the development team has recognized that this is a problem. It is honestly a credit to them as a development team that they're able to be so transparent about this and to be so human about it, to be able to share that actually this has been a really difficult time for the team and that the amount of content they promised is still on the table but is going to have to wait a little bit longer. I think that's really great of them to kind of bring that forward and let everybody know instead of just delaying and delaying without an explanation and then potentially suffering a bit of community backlash as a result. And so obviously, while I'd like to get in there and play around with the Caves and Cliffs features as soon as possible, I understand that it takes a lot of effort to develop an update like this, and I wish the team all the best in developing it. I think it's going to be really fun once the full update is in effect and we can explore all of those caves below Y0 and the tall mountains and everything, but I really think that is going to be worth the wait in the meantime, and it's really great that we get something to play around with in summer. As for how that affects my plans for my current series and all of the stuff I do on this channel, I am still planning to end Season 1 of the Survival Guide when the first half of the Caves and Cliffs update comes out. I've been gathering momentum towards a finale for quite a while, working on this big museum project that contains everything in Minecraft 1.16, and I didn't expect to expand the museum beyond that. I'm probably going to put out a world download so that people can explore the world in 1.17 if they want to, but as of 1.17, I'm done with the Survival Guide Season 1 world. I do still plan to start a Survival Guide Season 2, but I honestly think it is going to be much better if I wait until winter of this year in order to do that. I think it's going to make a lot more sense to create a tutorial series where the new caving experience is within the first few episodes, so that when people are going back to that series, they don't have to wait until episode 50 to see what caving looks like to them now, rather than rush into things, start a Season 2 of Survival Guide immediately when the new update comes out, and then have to backtrack and go over some of the early game stuff again when that changes in winter. So instead, I'm thinking about doing maybe about a 6-month mini-series in between Survival Guide Seasons 1 and 2. Maybe we'll do a hardcore Survival Guide, because I know hardcore is really popular right now and a lot of people would be interested in seeing that. Or maybe we'll do some other kind of spin on a vanilla series that's just going to allow me to flex my creative muscles, still work in a few tutorials here and there, but have a temporary world that's going to last between then and the start of Survival Guide Season 2 in winter once the second part of the Caves and Cliffs update comes out. That's my plan as of this moment in time. Could that change? Possibly, but in the meantime, we've got some snapshots to take a look at, and the snapshots are now going to be more focused on the update the team is planning on delivering in summer. So what does that mean for Snapshot 21w15a, which we received today? Well, as it turns out, there is a little bit of a change here, and you'll notice a couple of things are different in the world menu. Any worlds that you've created since the deeper cave generation has been started. So I think in 21w15a, I think was the first time we got that. Those worlds can no longer be loaded in the current snapshot. So in 21w15a onwards, you won't be able to load those worlds right away. And when you create a new world, which I'm going to do in creative this time because there are only a couple of changes I want to show you, you will notice that the world seems much the same as it does in 1.16 right now. In fact, all of the features that were unique to the new type of world generation, including noise caves, caves below Y0, world heights of higher than 256 blocks, and aquifers generating on the surface and below ground, have all basically been removed. They aren't gone from the game permanently, and they will be back in snapshots for the winter update. And in fact, there is actually still a way we can get hold of them in this world, which I will explain in just a second. But for now, if we go down below the surface of the ground here, you will see that caves now only generate as they used to. We find lava below Y11, and there are still a few new features like Amethyst geodes. We can see some deep slate there generating at the bottom of the world, even deep slate ore. And by the way, I'm going to take advantage of a new feature where spectators can see through lava to show you that deep slate diamond ore is still down there, a bit of redstone, a bit of gold, and deep slate gold there as well. So a whole bunch of the blocks in this update are still going to be arriving in the update we're getting this summer. So right here you can see deep slate. There are going to be patches of tuff underground as well. The ore blocks will have changed in appearance. There will be glow lichen lighting up the environment, and there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff to find. Like I said, amethyst geodes are still going to be present. We're still going to find copper ore at a bunch of different elevations, and it's going to be possible even to get hold of moss and dripstone as well, because those are blocks which are going to generate naturally in the world, but there are other ways of getting them, like trading with villagers. Axolotls and the glow squid will still be making an appearance. We've got an axolotl swimming around in a surface lake here, and they should still be spawning in areas underground. You'll possibly even find axolotls in rivers here and there are subsurface water lakes around the place, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with from previous iterations of Minecraft, and occasionally even water sources like this have the potential to spawn axolotls as well. So we might still be finding those around the world as we explore the first half of the Caves and Cliffs update. But if you're interested in exploring the world with the features that we've gotten used to in previous snapshots, like the extended caves reaching down below Y0, the taller build height, and everything in between, then all is not lost. The team has actually provided a data pack which basically turns the overworld into a custom dimension, which have been implemented in the game since I think early 1.16. The idea is that you can simply install this data pack before you load up a world, and when you create a new world using the data pack, it will give you all of the features that we've gotten used to from the last few snapshots, including all of the caves generating below Y0 and everything. So to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to recreate the world that we just generated using the recreate button here on the world selection screen. I'm going to click on that. It's going to create the same world with the same world seed. You'll notice it's copied the seed in there for me. And I'm going to hit data packs and then open pack folder. That's opened up the folder on my desktop that I can simply copy the Caves and Cliffs preview zip file into, and there you go. It appears in the available column over here. I just need to add that into the world. Click done. It will validate the data pack for me, and then I can create the new world. This time we'll call it Caves Test, like so. We can hit create new world, and it will give you this warning that experimental settings are not supported. So basically, the custom dimension at work here is not supported. It's not going to be a full version of Minecraft. This isn't just how we play Minecraft now. It's still a work in progress, and they can't guarantee that it's going to work okay. This is just if you want to continue playing with these cave features and potentially test for bugs that we can give some feedback to for the team. So we're going to click proceed. It's going to load up the world once again, and that will generate you a world that on the surface looks relatively similar. You might notice a couple of changes to surface caves and maybe the occasional aquifer here and there, but for the most part, a lot of this is going to look pretty similar. As you go down into the world, though, things are going to look completely different. You'll notice that the deep caves have started to generate these enormous aquifers. Ore distribution will be as it has been in the last few snapshots, where a lot of ores can be found in different regions of the world in greater or lesser quantities, and the further down you go, the more deep slate caves and caverns you will start to find, including some really fantastic ones, of course, with all of the abandoned mineshafts poking out into them. So, if you are really excited for the update that is now coming in winter, there is still a version of the game that you can play this way. It just involves setting up a custom dimension version of the overworld, which has everything in there, and the team has provided that data pack for you, so you can do that anytime you like, as long as you don't plan on upgrading this world into some of the newer snapshots, because the new snapshots coming up for the summer version of the game won't be compatible with worlds that have been generated like this, and you can't really guarantee that it will be compatible with any worlds going forward. I've also noticed that chunk loading sometimes produces a couple of odd little performance stutters, so yeah, unfortunately this version might not be quite as playable in some seeds. Others it seems fine, but this seed, as I've just set it up, I am getting that weird kind of stuttery behavior every time I try and fly around. And it may be just me loading a certain amount of chunks in creative, or it may be that something behind the scenes isn't quite right here, but I didn't encounter this in many of the snapshots. Maybe the team will be kind enough to update the data pack if they can discover what the cause of this is, but largely speaking, it's expected that we're going to have to wait for the updated cave generation to come in snapshots after the summer release happens. So back in our original 21w15a world, this one only goes down to Y0 and then stops, I'm afraid, but we have a few new features to go over in this update. The first of which is going to require me to locate a mountain biome, so let's go and find one of those. Unfortunately, we won't have the full mountain biomes of the Caves and Cliffs world gen quite yet, but oh, I'm in a wall. Alright, let's get out of here because we need to find ourselves some goats. There are some sheep hanging out in the mountains here, but as we get further away from the desert, hopefully on one of these mountain tops, we will encounter ourselves a herd of goats. There they are! Look at these magnificent guys. And so I'm going to drop myself into creative mode, and I don't know if they will ram me while I'm in creative, but goats will now act much more aggressive towards other entities. I don't know if they're going to ram any of these chickens or not, but according to the snapshot changelog, it does say goats will ram anything that moves, and also armor stands. So if I go into survival mode right now, we're going to just stand still for a minute or two here, line ourselves up with some of these goats, and see if they decide to charge at us. That one at least has us fixed in his sights, and is he going to come over and say hello? Hello! Hi there, friend! I wonder if I give it a quick tap if he's going to... Oh, no, he's just going to run around a little bit, kind of like sheep and cows do. But nope, there we go. Yeah, he lowered his head and he rammed me. And honestly, I deserved it for giving him a tap on the butt. They don't drop their horns yet, but we will potentially see them do that in future. That's something that's been added to the Bedrock Edition beta, but hasn't been implemented in Java Survival yet. Now, I'm going to try and get this one to ram an armor stand, but... you know, he's acting pretty aloof right now. I think he's probably just going to be a little bit more chill. It's kind of cool that they can ram armor stands, though. You just got to be careful about leaving any of these lying around when there are goats in the neighborhood. Whoa! All right, that actually kind of made me jump. I think they make like a more aggressive bleat when they are actively about to attack something. They'll kind of bleat like that, and... yeah, that chicken absolutely went flying. I don't know how much damage has been done to the chicken. It seemed to take it pretty well, but yeah, that plus the cluck noise, that really startled me. Good job, goats. And obviously, as you can see, if we hang around the goats for long enough, the Goat Bleats subtitle has now been added, which was previously kind of glitched out and didn't have a proper subtitle name. Now that's been it's been added in, and it seems like it's working pretty well. Outside of that, there are a few other things we can look at here in creative mode. For example, bone meal now has a crinkly, crunchy noise when it is used. So we've actually got a sound effect attached to bone meal now, which is significant for future updates, because once we get hold of skulk sensors, potentially using bone meal on something could trigger a skulk sensor, which might activate a redstone circuit. So some sort of automatic bone mealing thing to detect when you've bone mealed an area sounds like a really cool addition to me, and it's kind of nice that bone meal has a nice sound effect to add to it now. It feels kind of like rustly, and it feels appropriate for bone mealing stuff like grass and crops that you would normally grow with this sort of thing. If we dip into the blocks section of the creative menu, you'll notice that's all been reordered so that all of the ore blocks are in the same area. And there are also 3 new blocks added to the collection. People pointed out that it would be good if you could compact some of the raw iron, copper, and gold that you can find for even less inventory clutter if you've been out fortuning them. And here they are: raw iron, raw copper, and raw gold, or as I like to call them, dried pinto beans, moldy baked beans, and mac and cheese. They do kind of look a little bit beansy. They got a beansy texture about them, but to be honest, considering the raw sprites, which I'll try and find real quick if I just throw a couple of these on the ground here, the raw sprites have changed as well. They all look a little bit more similar to each other, although they've clearly got differences in color, in shading, and according to Jasper Burstro, the texture artist, they are still supposed to be fairly accessible to people with the more common forms of color blindness, so hopefully that should work out okay. But jokes aside, I honestly think these blocks are really quite cool. I think the raw iron block has some pretty nice interaction with other blocks have a similar structure. If you look at cobblestone, for example, a lot of the lines in there actually match up with the cobblestone texture nearby, and while you might not see these two colors together all that often, I can imagine people using these in builds occasionally for a little bit of additional texture and color, and I can see that working out pretty well. I'm not entirely certain if you could say the same about the copper block. There are still, there's a couple of lines there that join up around the edges and allow it to tile, although the contrast is really high between the colors going on here. But can you imagine building a big copper dragon, or even a fish? You can imagine these looking like kind of fish scales. This is going to be the crudest fish I've ever drawn, but yeah, there you go. And then we'll put one of those in there for the eye. And it looks like fish scales, like a rainbow trout kind of look, or potentially, the scales of a dragon. The same goes for the raw gold block, actually. You can totally imagine people using that texture as the scales of a golden dragon in some sort of epic fantasy build. I would love to see that, and something I might even give a go at myself at some point. But I think these blocks fit in really well just by virtue of how good they look next to their raw item counterparts. They're exactly what I might imagine smushing 9 of these together in a meter by meter block would turn out like. And I like the new sprites a lot. I think those are pretty cool. They lose a little bit of their individuality, but I think they've still got character, and it kind of looks like the ingots that you would smelt them down into are already kind of visible in the shape of the texture. There are a few other bits and pieces in this snapshot changelog, including a couple of technical changes that might be of interest to creative builders and map makers, but I'm not going to go into any more than that for now. I just think it's worth getting the news out there if you haven't heard about the upcoming changes to caves and cliffs, and I think it's going to be worth keeping an eye on what's coming in the snapshots between now and summer, because we don't know exactly when in summer they plan on releasing the first part of the caves and cliffs update, but if it arrives soon, then after that we can look forward to more updates about world generation and everything else the team has planned. For now, that's where we're going to leave this video, and I hope you've enjoyed checking out the snapshot with me, along with the news that the Caves and Cliffs update is going to be split. I think it is for the best, and at the end of it, we're going to have an update that we all only dreamed of a few months ago. So thank you to the Mojang team for everything that they're doing, and for being so transparent with the players. I think it's really important that we know what's going on, and you guys deliver every single time. So I cannot wait for the first half of the update, or the second half, to be honest, but I'm going to have to wait, and the wait will be worth it. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name has been Pixlriffs. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.